Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The acceleration of Joe Joyce's career is in full effect. Joyce has been confirmed to take on the former title challenger Bryant Jennings at the O2 on the undercard of Daniel Dubois and Nathan Gorman's fight on July 13th. This is a great fight. It's pretty much a 50-50 sort of fight. The acceleration of Joyce's career, they've been talking about it for a while, hadn't quite managed to get the opponents that they wanted. David Haye couldn't push Joyce to that next level of opponent. Richard Schaefer, when he was looking after Joyce in the US, couldn't push him to that next level. But finally, with Frank Warren and under manager Sam Jones, they've got Joyce, that guy, in his 10th fight, the sort of opponent that they've been talking about for a while. So Jennings has to take a lot of credit here because Joyce isn't without risk, very heavy-handed. He might be a little bit slow on the punch, that's what a lot of fans think, but he's very effective, very hard-hitting, and he gets the job done, very effective. So Jennings taking on a guy who's only got, 9 fights under his belt at the moment, still considered a prospect, maybe in name only, because he needed this sort of fight to take him to that next level. Because if Joyce can fight Jennings and beat him, well, he really does sort of enter the sort of fringe contender level. It's sort of putting the prospect phase behind him. I really like this fight. And I got to say, this July 13th card, which is not a pay-per-view, with Jennings and Joyce on the undercard as the co-main event, and then you have Dubois and Gorman topping the bill. Fantastic card. We have been missing this sort of card all year pretty much. There's not too much to talk about in the heavyweight division in terms of competitive matchups, and now we have 2 plopped on the same card. It's going to be a very good month, July. There's other fights to look forward to. You have White and Oscar Rivas. You've got Lucas Brown and Tom Little. That may not be the best fight, but it's a competitive matchup. And also talk that Artis Bilka will be facing Derek Chisora. But getting back to Joe Joyce and Bryant Jennings, full credit for this fight getting made. I've been a little bit skeptical about some of the chat from Team Joyce more broadly because Sam Jones has been talking a big game, but then delivering the Alexander Ustinovs and Berman Staverns of the world, which, faded former contenders or a former champion in Berman Stavern, but they had nothing left. Bryant Jennings has a lot left, so full credit for them getting this one done because this was the step that they needed to take to advance Joyce to that next stage in his career. And no guarantees that he wins here. But getting to Joe Joyce's Instagram here, he says, July 13th, I will fight Bryant Jennings at the O2 in London, live on BT Sport. A tough test for my 10th professional fight, and one I'm really looking forward to. I'm back in training camp, already preparing for the test. Hashtag heavy duty, that's what the card's called. Hashtag the juggernaut. And then the fist emoji. And Jennings himself on his social media, so he hasn't so much said anything about this, but he has changed his name on Twitter to UK Killer, and he retweeted a quote from the press release. This is a high-risk, good reward fight. It makes getting into the ring worth it. I don't mind the test. I don't mind the challenge. That's just who I am. After this, I'm coming after all the other UK heavyweights. They are the ones running the division. B.Y. Jennings. Nathan Gorman, who's topping that build, he says, not bigging up the show, but Joyce Jennings is a really, really good fight. Jennings beat Rivas well until KO in the 12th, sparred both, great fight. And he's right, it is a great fight. This does actually, even though he's not bigging up the card and not bigging up the show, this is actually really adding to it and strengthening that card. Be one of the strongest cards in terms of heavyweight fights on it for all of 2019, if not the strongest so far. And we'll just get to the press release from frankwarren.com, a few comments here and then on to a few final thoughts. So Joe Joyce says, this should be my toughest fight today. Well, this is a step up for Joyce, clearly his toughest fight, and the best fight that he would be involved in so far in his career. But he continues, Bryant Jennings has been in very big fights. He gave Vladimir Klitschko a tough night before he fought Tyson Fury. And I'll just jump in there. Yeah, Bryant Jennings, although he hasn't proven himself to be elite, he's been at that almost elite level. He's fought guys like Vladimir Klitschko. He's fought Luis Ortiz. He's fought Oscar Rivas. He lost to Rivas in the 12th round of their fight. That was only earlier this year. That was in January. Against Ortiz, he was knocked out, and Vladimir Klitschko, he took him the full distance. So he has proven that he is at a certain level. He's got some good wins on his resume. He has the likes of Artur Spilka on his resume. It's one of these things that he may not have taken that a step to that elite level, but he's proven he's not just cannon fodder. He is a very solid fighter. And that fight with Rivas was very competitive before he was knocked out in the 12th round when Oscar Rivas went for broke. And Joyce continues, I respect Bryant for stepping up and taking this fight. I intend to send a statement to the heavyweight division on July 13th, and it won't be long before I get my hands on those big titles. And if he can beat Bryant Jennings, even if it was by decision, that is a statement, because until now, Joyce has been treading water waiting for this sort of fight. So he's got it now, so the opportunity is there for him to beat Jennings and springboard himself into some bigger fights. And we know he's got some options post this fight anyway. Within the WBA, he is the gold title champion. He is potentially in line to face the winner of Manuel Charr and Trevor Bryan, who is set to face each other. Also, he is the mandated challenger to Ajit Kabiel's EBU title. So either of those routes I would be happy with for Joyce if he can win this fight. And then it goes on to talk about Jennings' win, Spilka, as I mentioned, also Mike Perez and Alexander Dimitrenko. So Jennings has been at a level where he's beaten some top 20, top 30 sort of guys at that point in their career. So he's proven that he's one of the better heavyweights in the division. And certainly I had him well within my top 20 for the past year or two. So if Joyce can come in here, put in a good performance, it really would be a credible win on his record. So Jennings here is saying, though, this is the Frank Warren quote, I won't say that again, but he also says, I'm the only one who can beat myself. Nobody can beat me. When I've lost, it's been because of me, not my opponent. Well, I mean, that's easy to say that. He was outpointed by Klitschko. He was knocked out by Rivas and knocked out by Ortiz. But in that Ortiz fight, he was playing a high-stakes game, gambling with Ortiz on the inside. Even though he's got a massive reach of 84 inches, Bryant Jennings often doesn't fight at range. He likes to fight on the inside and mix it up. And if he does try to do that against a guy like Joe Joyce, he could end up finding that he ends up getting tagged up, touched up, and finding himself on the canvas. So I think, if he was to be smart about this from a style point of view, utilizing the reach, because he has the reach advantage of about 4 inches over Joe Joyce for this fight. If he can fight from in the outside, use his boxing skills, although Joyce, he's a decent boxer himself, he has that proven amateur pedigree. But Jennings has proven to be quite slick, and from the outside against Oscar Rivas, when he was using his reach, he actually looked decent. But when he sort of fought a bit smaller, fought on the inside, he certainly was much more hittable and a bit more vulnerable, and he has been knocked out before from fighting in the inside. And against Oscar Rivas, that was a case where Rivas emptied the tank at the end of the fight in the 12th round, got Jennings out of there. That was just sheer pressure, and something landed that was telling. Ultimately, Jennings was taken out there. And I'd have to imagine that the pressure that Joyce would exert would be similar to what was exerted in that 12th round by Rivas. I think what we've seen is Joyce will keep coming. He's going to be coming after Jennings, really pressuring him, pouring it on. And if Jennings can't hurt him and get his respect, keep him off to some extent to be able to take rest and breathers throughout the fight, it could end up wearing Jennings down. And this is why I am favouring Joyce in this fight, and potentially through a stoppage the mid to late rounds. But I could see if Jennings executes a good game plan utilising his reach, that he will be able to actually outpoint Joe Joyce. But I think the weight of the pressure and some of those heavy punches that Joyce will undoubtedly be landing, although people like to say that they're slow, they're incredibly effective. He ends up beating guys up. I just don't know if Jennings can last against a guy like Joe Joyce across 12 rounds here, but we shall see. But what do you make of this fight? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.